Howdy, howdy, howdy. Well, here we are Thursday night. Hopefully this thing's running. There's no guarantees. Last night was a real bear. But anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, we got a few popping in now. We got Randall, John, 2618. How you doing? Dave, Mr. BNSF. What's happening? Alrighty. Well, as y'all know, there's no intro video. I had a few people ask if we could drop it. They didn't like having to skip it when they had to go back and watch the videos. So I said, okay, I'll drop it. And yeah, if I get somebody on the panel, because I don't know it all, I will try to answer it. As y'all can see, there's plenty of room here for somebody to pop in on the panel. The link is in the post down at the bottom. All you gotta do is click on it and it should bring you right on into the room here. Alrighty. Well, like Bill says, let's do a little homework here. This coming Saturday, we have got a brand new show starting. It's going to be called Small Layouts, Big Opportunities. And the very own John 2618 is one of the presenters there, along with Tom from North Georgia. Both of them have dreamed up a really good show. So y'all be sure and check them out Saturday at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Oh, what we got going? We got Big Bill's show on the 16th. That's with Joe Atkinson. And then on the 19th will be the second show for Small Layouts, Big Opportunities. Alright, let's see. We've got Dan Cohen's gotten in there. Samurai is here. Who else? Brian W. How's it going? Mr. Sparky 107 107. What, you mean Dave Sparky's having to take naps now? I know very little, Randall, about those than it's really not a booster. It's just a programmer that you're looking at. And if you hadn't said anything, I could have gave you the name of two of them. They're pretty popular. But hey, Adrian, how you doing? Anyway, what you do is they hook just to a piece of track that's preferably not part of the layout. Make sure your programming track is separate from the layout, especially in the beginning, because if it's part of the layout, I guarantee you every engine you got on that layout, if you go to program one engine, you'll program them all. Howdy, Dwight. He just came in. Human City's here now. Hey, here's Lloyd. How you doing, Lloyd? Your mic's not working if you're talking. Still not working. There you go.
You can hear me?
Yep.
It
Can
helps when
now.
you turn it on. It helps when you turn it on.
Yeah, it does. Just like the vacuum cleaner, when it doesn't work, plug it in.
Yeah, I was saying you're all by yourself tonight.
Yeah. So it may be a short show. Dan, you don't have to grow a set. Just come on in here. It doesn't hurt, I guarantee you. William A's in the house now. Trying to get Human City to come in here because I know he's got a real good microphone. Anyway, Randall, yeah, I would strongly suggest using, say, about a 3-foot long piece of track. Hook your programmer up to that to program your engines. Here comes Andy. That's the one I need to answer this question.
Yeah, because that's something I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the names. I know Soundtrack's got one, but there's a third-party one that a lot of people like and use.
Yeah, like programming boosters, basically,
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, so, I mean, there's been problems with some decoders on some DCC systems where there's not enough power for the power consumption requirements of some sound decoders. Soundtrack's decoders have been synonymous for that. Digitrax and DCE systems are also notorious for being low booster power. Kind of one of the joys that I love about the DCC++ systems and you know, PySprogs and some of those others.
He's looking for a commercial. He's new to all this.
Well, what kind of DCC system do you have? Because that's going to set the stage for this whole thing, right?
Well, I guess he's doing the Soundtracks because that's kind of always. What was that other one? The something 3. Barry Rozier used it for programming. It's a
Oh, he used a Sprog like I did at the time.
it's
Actually, I got the idea of using a Sprog. Yeah, I used a Sprog 3, not the PySprog thing like Marty uses, but it's made by the same company, made by the Sprog company. I got the idea from Barry and I bought a Sprog to program decoders with, but had one for a while and just sold it on Facebook or something, you know, Facebook. It's a great device. The beauty of that thing as a dedicated programmer versus using the programming output of your DCC system is, one, it doesn't have to be connected to your DCC system whatsoever. So I just have a little programming track and that little device connected to a laptop. It also has plenty of power. The Sprogs and say DCC++ and some of the others, I have as much power on my booster. I have 4 amps on my programming track, just like I do have on the main layout without going through a booster, which means I can program anything without any problems. But NCE and Digitrax have the symptom of being kind of too underpowered for dealing with the Soundtrax decoder.
Yeah, he's using a Zephyr Extra DCC.
Okay. Then you're going to want to use one of the, like a Soundtrax, you're going to want to use one of a couple solutions. So Soundtrax, I'm pretty sure it's Soundtrax, I'll look it up in a second, makes a little device that you can put in line to your booster to gain that additional power for the programming track. That's one way to solve it. Or you could buy a Sprog or something like that that's a dedicated programmer. So you
because if he gets a Sprog like they're saying here, he's going to need a PR4 for everything else to be able to hook it up into the system on Digitrax. So I would suggest using a Sprague 3. That way he's got the power and he won't have any programming issues.
Yes, that's right. And you need a PR3 to hook the Digitrax to the computer, assuming that you want to do that. There's nothing that requires you to do that. If you buy a Sprague, program your locomotive, set it over on the layout, and then choose the decoder of your locomotive with your Digitrax the way you always do and run your trains. Now, the only reason that you should need a PR3 is if you want JMRI to interact with your railroad, your layout, your locomotives during the operation of the trains, if that's the case.
Well, Randall's new to all this, so we'll start him out simple with just the programmer, and then once he gets up, he's got a small layout, so that way he can work his way into JMRI and all, because that PR4 and everything else is going to throw him off.
Yeah, and you've got to take this, it's the way, all this stuff's complicated, and the way you deal with it's the same way you eat an elephant, they say, one bite at a time. So what I recommend to people is start with Decoder Pro, and it's free anyway, but whatever money you put into setting up Decoder Pro, from then on, all the rest of it's basically free, and you can add those parts to your layout later. But the Decoder Pro part is an absolute shoe-in for sure. Decoder Pro. If you do the other stuff later, great.
Dan, yes, Lloyd's camera is mirrored, and we haven't figured out how to flip it around yet. So you didn't inhale something that would make you see different things.
Well, both could be true. You may have and his camera might be mirrored. Both of those things could be true, but his camera is mirrored. So
I bought it in Australia, that's why.
Yeah, okay. So hopefully, Randall, that might have helped you out on that.
And the little Soundtrax booster, I'm going to look and see how much they are, because a Sprague will set you back $100, $110, give or take.
Yeah, by the time he gets the PR4 and all that, he's going to have almost 150 in it. Plus the Tsunami Soundtrax that's around 150, just starting out, I think it is. Programmer. The Sprague 3 would be his best bet and a lot easier. Just wire it into it, connect it up, and do his programming, and like you said, take it off the program track, put it on the layout, and have fun. Hey, there he goes. He's got it now. Flipped it around.
I had to go into my Logitech settings.
Yeah. Okay.
So you see it all right, but I see it the other way around.
Yeah,
right?
Backwards. I don't know, Jack, if I said hey or not, but how you doing? Yeah, check into the Sprague Sprague 3 there, Randall. I think you'll come out a lot cheaper and less headaches that way. You don't need the Wi-Fi or anything.
But it's a super easy solution. It's a simple little device that you plug some kind of power supply, a wall port, hit a USB cable to your computer. All it is for is programming, but it's a super simple way to get started. All you're going to use Decoder Pro. It's real straightforward. I use my Sprague to run a layout with, though, so you could, get a switching layout, or if it's a small layout, you can run your entire layout from that later. It gives you some room to grow and work with it. But think of it right now, initially, as just a dedicated programming solution. Set you up a little stick of styrofoam or a 1 x or something, with just a single piece of flex on it or something. Just a programming track. The whole thing can move around with you and go to your workbench. It does not have to be connected to your layout anyway, electrically or otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about Jack here, but I think he's talking about the same power supply I have, which is 20 amps. That I went with my Super Chief. So hopefully he's using circuit breakers on that when he hooks it up to the layout, so he doesn't weld the trains to the track, because he's going to have to limit his power down to 5 amps or less.
Yeah, circuit breakers are a must. Yeah, I like generally less than 5 amps in a particular section. I like 5 amps in a power district. You know, a booster of 5 amps is, to me, they've got 10 amps and more boosters out there. There's a solution the system that I use for mine, there's a way to put 40 amps through one booster. But I like a couple amps per power district. I mean, modern locomotives, a quarter amp, that lets you run 8 locomotives in a single small section.
5 amps on any layout is plenty power.
Oh gosh, I mean, a fairly large club layout, 10 amps will do the job. Reasonably large. You start getting into 30, 40 trains at a time. Sure, I get it, but what the key is breaking the layout into pieces. If in Randall's case it's got a 4x8 layout or something, boosters and power districts and all that stuff's not going to be required. A single, maybe 2 circuit breakers, if you really cared about it. But if you're running trains by yourself, just a single circuit breaker will do the job anyway.
Hey, Grandpa Rails is here with us tonight. Oh, geez. Human City's getting really technical tonight. Is there any way to turn a LocoNet Common Ground booster into a OPTO isolated booster?
Well, I'm sure there is.
Yeah, just don't plug it in.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there is a way to translate between the two, of course, but a common ground booster. I mean, really, the whole way to think about DCC is the common ground thing is just DCC is. I mean, both sides go positive, 0 and positive. It's an alternate. It doesn't alternate the way AC does, but both sides go positive. So at least that's my understanding of it. So I don't. But yes, surely there's a way to make that conversion. Sure, of course. I mean, guys like me that run our ++ systems, DCC++ systems, or whatever, all that is somebody who figured out a way to take a motor driver, and to make a square wave come out of it with an Arduino with some modification. It's not hard to manage any of that stuff, but you just have to deal with the conversion. And especially if you're just doing flipping some polarities, stuff like that, that's all relatively straightforward. I mean, I think of DCC++ as doing, for any of you that are tech savvy, as being closer to bit bagging than anything else. It's just saying, blast these bits. Blast the bits that I say to do.
Hey, Andy.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, buddy.
I haven't seen you in a while. I need to get back here real quick.
How to get on here.
I need to jump back up here real quick for a second. Where'd you go, JoJo? Oh, he said he put 3 scale trains on his layout after an hour overload kill. You're running light on amps there, Chuck. I mean, if you got 5 amps, you should not be having overload kill.
Or you got a problem. I have not tested my scale trace locomotives yet. I tested the Broadway Limited, like the Y6B, especially because it's a heavy die-cast locomotive that pulls quite a bit of juice. And I was testing it on grade, pulling a log train and putting it into stall. In the stall, I could get it up, in the 0.4-ish range. Under normal operating circumstances, under the heaviest load I could get it, right at the edge of failing, slipping, or stalling, right at the edge of that, it would pull 0.34 of an amp. The best I could make it do was 0.34. So a third of an amp. And that's the worst case scenario that I've personally come into experience with more modern equipment. I would expect a scale trace locomotive to pull a quarter of an amp. So if you've got, 4 locomotives, an amp, maybe an amp at an amp at a touch, an amp, 1.1, 1.2 amps. That's plenty. If you're having overload problems with 5 amps of power and you're not running 5 trains with 3 locomotives or 4 locomotives each, then something else is going wrong. And that could be wire size problems that are heating up and causing you some problems. Could be what you've got conducted to the rail. That's why so many of us, as a matter of just being fail proof as much as possible, suggest putting a wire to every rail and using larger than seems reasonable bus wires. I like 14s. All stranded wire, because that way you don't have that drop. Or if you're throwing your DCC signal over a particularly long distance and don't have a terminating capacitor, basically, on the far side.
All right, everybody's saying Andy is in an echo chamber. He's not on my end. He's sounding great. So, only thing I can say to do is y'all do a refresh to see if that doesn't correct the problem, because he's not echoing on my side.
Me either.
I'm not using my particularly good mic. It's just a camera mic. I could plug the other one up.
No, because the other one don't sound as good as your camera mic.
It's simple. This is a simple solution. So I can go get my wireless mic that I been using on the live shows recently. The live mic.
Yeah, I'm having to boost your audio on that one too.
Oh, okay. I've turned that gain down because people were growling about it. So I've got it down on it.
Oh, okay. I keep watching my meter up here when you're talking, and I'm going great. I hope
okay.
everybody can hear you.
Am I okay right now?
Yeah. Yeah, your camera mic works great.
Yeah, it's dead simple. There's no complexity. There's nothing tuned on it. There's no gain adjustments or anything. The wireless mic has a gain adjustment. My blue mic has a gain adjustment, so I can overdrive them or underdrive them, but they require tuning to get them anywhere close to right.
Ralph, he's using Digitrack Zephyr, the newest one, 3 amps. So either he doesn't have enough feeders running out to the track, or he's got an issue with the system or the engines. Reason why they're pulling too many amps.
Well, if you've got a 4x8 layout, a couple wires, 2 wires, run from the decoder out to from the command station or the Zephyr out to the layout is enough. You may have some weakness at the far end. You may have some.
Actually, no, you need feeder wires at each end of a 4x8. Because when I had a 4x8, I get out to the far end from the feeder wire. Yeah, my engines were dying. So I had to run another feeder wire.
Well, especially with turnout, you've got those small conductor wires underneath. You may have some loss of power on the far side for sure. It's going to be a wire size problem. So you could drop wires on both sides of the layout. I would say it's more likely that if it's something like that and it's just a couple wires run out, that it's probably wire size. If you're using a 24 gauge wire, like the inside of a Cat 5 network wire or telephone wire or something, that's not large enough wire to handle, significant amperage. A lot of people say an 18 is adequate. It is, but 18 stranded wire is plenty good enough for your layout. I run my primary on 14s and my sub buses for each district on 18s. Better safe than sorry kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Let's try something here. Y'all let me know if Andy's audio clears up on this.
All right. Testing. Well, maybe testing 1, testing 2, testing 3. Oh, that's a bad thing. You get to hear me twice. What a joy. Testing. And I can count for you, but that's not going to be that enjoyable. So.
All right, well, Andy was saying test and all that good stuff. Did he echo then? Let me know in the chat. Alright, so I guess it's my microphone that's causing the feedback on you, Andy, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I've had that problem a whole lot with ambient speakers.
No, it's my microphone picking you up for some reason or another.
No, Andy sounded fine after you made your corrections.
I didn't, I just muted my microphone.
Okay. Lloyd was echoing, and so was Andy M. For me, all three were echoing. Not now.
Yeah, I always had that problem. Well, the few times I've streamed, I always had to use headphones. I never could figure out how to get around headphones.
Well, that surprises me because I can't get a word in edgewise.
You're fine now. Well, when you said hello, you were echoing.
Oh, okay.
You're obviously referring to Andy.
Sandy, did you figure out how to hang your railroad from your ceiling?
He's not going to. Now your sound quit.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
my
now
son.
Ralph is echoing too. Yeah, let me, I'll be back in just a second. Y'all just talk amongst yourselves, but not about me.
Okay, second is over.
So did you hear about that Johnny guy?
I left my mic on, so
Oh,
You got to watch that guy.
damn it.
Anyway, Human City, you're right. I did mean amps. If he's using a Zephyr and he's running 3 scale train locos, that's going to bring him close to the limit if they're sound locos, and then start adding cars to it, and the amperage goes up. The draw goes up. And it could put you right on the edge.
What is a Zephyr? How many amps is it?
Between 2.5 and 3.
Huh. God, that seems a lot. I mean, in theory, a Scout Trace locomotive can pull upwards of 3/4 of an amp.
The decoder is only rated at 1 end.
Yeah, I have not tested. I have not looked at the load with the Scout Trace locomotives that I've bought since I started buying diesels. The most I'd ever seen on a modern locomotive recently has been, a quarter amp, but a third of an amp, about 0.33, 0.34, 0.35 of an amp is the most I've seen. Outside of stall conditions, yes, you could get.
So now I'm confused. Human City comes back and says it was Randall with the Zephyr.
yeah.
Jack has a 20 amp booster.
Wow.
So which one's blowing, the Zephyr
Yeah.
or the booster? And are they on the same layout?
Different
Jock's
people.
the one that's having the issues when he runs 3 engines after an hour, it overloads.
Okay, so who's having the issue? The Zephyr or the
Yes.
booster?
Yes.
Okay.
No, he's just asking about programming boosters. He doesn't have a booster. He's just using a Zephyr.
Well, I thought I heard somebody say or read that somebody said when they run 3 locomotives, it would after a while it would trip out.
That's Jack.
And he says he has a 20 amp booster.
Okay.
3 locomotives is causing you a problem.
20 amp booster.
You need to put some safety stuff in there. 20 amps. Well, 20 amps.
Major problems. I would look at that 20 amp booster.
No, I think it was Randall Elson that had the problem with the overload, and he's on a Zephyr. He's new. He's a beginner in the hobby.
To answer your question, Dan, it's a brick. It's the brick for the roof. It's the edge of the bricks of the roof.
Now, is that clock going to work?
No. I thought about doing a fast clock, but with all my lighting inside,
Yeah.
I don't have much room because it's 3 layers of LED lights.
You got the whole inside of that box.
Huh?
You have the whole inside of that box.
Yeah, but to put the machine or whatever you call it, the mechanical parts to make that clock work.
A motor. If you're going to do a fast clock, you're going to want something like a stepper motor, probably. If you did a fast clock. If you're
Or
just
you get a real fast clock.
yeah, you can buy something like that. Or if you wanted just a regular clock, you can buy a regular clock mechanism from Hobby Lobby designed for people making clocks. But if you want it to be a fast clock, then it seems like a stepper motor would probably be the way to do that.
Now the thing is, the fact that the hands of the clock are lit, so basically you've got a white LED at each end where you've got the red dots. So if the clock was going to move, I would need a movable LED. Nah.
So your clock's always going to be 8 minutes after 10.
You know the worst part of that?
10 after 9 after 10.
Used for a minute.
The Timex time.
What'd you say, Andy?
He says, when I looked at his model and they had a photo of the real thing, it was the same damn time. It had me confused.
Yeah, that's right.
Which one's real? Which one's the model? It was looking good.
Thanks.
You know, the next thing he's going to have to model is the Hiram Walker Distillery in Windsor.
In reality, I was going to build the Coors in Colorado. But then I realized that I would need a layout just for that building that measured 42 feet by 26 feet.
Hmm.
So that wouldn't work.
Okay, so I'm reading it was Jack that had the problem before he put in the 20 amp box.
Yeah.
So the other question is, and we've talked about this before, you may be running only one engine. How many are sitting on the sidelines making noise? That aren't running, but they're still making sound. That's a draw on your main amperage as well.
Yeah, but he's saying that those engines draw 1.5 amps from scaled trains. I don't see how they could draw that much.
No way. No, an ESU decoder is a 1 amp max, and that's at the edge of its operating capabilities, 1 amp. It should not pull anywhere close to an amp. I mean, old motors might pull.
Most of your modern engines over the past, 4 years have pulled maybe a quarter at best.
To a half. The issue is not that. It's how many cars is he pulling with that locomotive? As soon as you start adding weight to it,
yeah,
you increase the amperage.
You put a load on your motor, which you can put your hand on the top of a locomotive or something.
You'll watch the amps go up.
Yeah, work a motor harder, and it will require more electricity, especially with back EMF. Yes, no question. I still don't think you're going to get anywhere close to. I mean, like a half amp is a dog.
Well, that's why the new decoders are 1 to 1.2 amps.
Yeah, it's a lot of juice. Yeah, you pull that much, but if you got 20 amps, gosh, man, you could run a lot of stuff at 1.2. I mean, yes, everything on your layout is going to take power. That's why I've got toggle switches and I'm going to do it differently later with Arduino. But for right now, toggle switches on all my staging tracks, so I can actually just pull the power away from those trains and illuminate passenger.
He says, yeah, they pull that much. Well, if that's the case, then one of the times that they go down, it's going to be the decoder that's going to go and not your system. because if they're pulling 1.5, they're pulling 0.3 amps more than the decoder is rated for.
Yeah, you would make and also if there's other stuff in the path that like USD's talking about his
So-
like block detection and those BDL 168s. If you have other things in the path, that all that stuff adds load. So everything that adds load will be a part of that whole system. But gosh,
So-
20 is a lot of juice.
Crazy Joe says Jack has some long trains. Well, that explains the draw.
Yeah, Jack said he's got 17 inches and 13 scale trains.
Yeah, if they're all sitting there drawing that much power, but still, 17 locomotives sitting on the track should I mean, if they were all running, if you consisted them all together, you should pull 5 amps or something like that. I mean, I'm guessing at the math on that, but a third amp a piece or something, or slightly less. Even if they were all running, even if you were pulling, if you were almost, I mean, yes, at stall, and adding more cars pushes you closer to stall. Basically, it puts more and more load on the engine, on the motor. So that will pull more power, but you're still talking about, 5 amps for 17 locomotives. I mean, it pushed 5 amps pretty hard, though.
So, okay, the next question I have, the locomotive by itself on the track, does it seem like it has, you have to give it more throttle than is required to get it to move? Because if that's the case, then there's something binding in the locomotive. Good point, Human City. Needs to get an amp gauge on his system.
Yeah, Tony's Trade Exchange. They're kind of
Yeah.
expensive for what they are, but they're still
Well,
cheap. And,
They're well worth it.
They are, and they're still cheaper than buying a RMS multimeter from a name brand or multimeter from a name brand vendor. Like, a Fluke RMS meter is going to set you back a few $100. Tony's Trade Exchange ramp meter is spectacular.
Yeah, because he's just selling just an amp meter. A Fluke has got everything else in there too.
That's right, and I think that's a great idea. The good thing, the Tony's Trade Exchange is nice because you can build it right into your loud fascia or somewhere else for troubleshooting. I always think buying a Fluke RMS meter is a good investment if you are going to do anything else. It's just a good investment. A Fluke multimeter is a lifetime investment.
If he has a loose connection somewhere, that could cause a draw in amperage as well. Like in the system, not so much the decoder.
Yeah, because when I had my DC layout when I was coming in, I had both the voltmeter and the amp meter hooked up to my track power. And I just bought the meters and put them in. You have to be careful how you wire that amp meter, though.
Well,
So somebody was asking
comes
me-
with instructions. Sorry, Lloyd.
I was just going to say, somebody was asking me to light up my Molson sign.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, I hadn't seen it lit up since it's been put in the building either. Very nice. It's amazing how that 3D printing material works as a diffuser so naturally. Looks good.
Miles had a really good. Miles is the one that did the lettering and the walls. The only problem that I had with what he did was the fact that he printed it with a filament, 3D filament printer. I had a hard time painting it. It gave me a weird. Let me see if I still have it. He was nice enough to give me 2 sets, so
So you messed one up.
yeah, this is a result I got. I don't know if you could see.
What is that?
That was one of the walls that I spray painted. And that piece in particular, like he did it on 2 machines. And I had some good results and some bad results. And it seems like all the bad results came from one machine.
Yeah, he's got that new Prosta machine. He had an M3D machine before. He does still have the M3D machine. That Prosta machine is.
It's
Is
the
it-
material. It's the material he's using.
Yeah, and there was, all I decided to do is use my emboss brick paper, and that kind of did the work.
Well, I think it's done to the right tool for the right job kind of thing. 3D printers have a tremendous number of jobs that they're right for, and there's different kinds. I mean, that's a resin printer, DLT, SLT printer, and he's using a filament printer. They each have their very unique cases for what they're great for, and they have different trade-offs, different consequences. For doing brick walls, I can't imagine a better machine than a laser cutter for it. That's the whole reason I'm going to buy a laser cutter and why so many people use that tool for that.
What are you looking at, Andy?
So see, he did the walls like this. Like he designed all the walls, and he did the letters separately, so I can just shove them in to give it that distance. But again, the fact that the letters are printed flat, there's an overrun of the letters, so I had to sand all the letters and also sand the holes to make them fit properly.
You don't think you're going to get stuff that you don't have to do anything to, do you?
Nah. See, and this is like, for example, this was the clock. So he designed that. He designed the.
Even a regular plastic model kit, you have to get the sandpaper out to make it fit properly.
Yeah, I totally agree. So he offered his workmanship, and it came out perfect. I sent him the pictures, and he was very happy.
So let me ask you, when you said you were painting it, were you priming it or were you painting it with a color?
Priming it.
What primer did you use?
You're asking me the name. I think it's Krylon.
I cringe when people say Krylon. I really do.
Okay, it's Lawn Cry.
Yeah, you'll be crying long, that's for sure. The best primer that I've found for doing any work on any plastic is the same stuff they use on automobiles, and it's called etching primer. And what it does is it bonds with the surface by melting the surface slightly, and the paint joins with the plastic. So on certain plastics, that's not going to happen, but it's still a better primer. I've seen some guys take a can of Tamiya. I don't have it now, but Tamiya white primer. And they'll spray it on, and they can't figure out why they got these cracks in the paint surface.
But I never had any problems with styrene. I don't know if it's because this thing is 3D printed or.
You have to know the chemicals and the plastic that he's using, because obviously that plastic doesn't take paint readily. Not certain paints anyway. And there's the chemicals in the primer. Some of them use the same stuff they put in lacquer paint, which
Would it-
a lot of
would
plastics
it-
don't like.
Would it been easier if I would have done it with an airbrush?
The whole idea when you prime is do very, very light coats, especially when like with the Krylon, because of the chemicals that are in it. Do very light coats, let it dry, come back and do a second coat, light coat, until you get it to the paint color or thickness that you want. So, I mean, you can do it any way you want, but that's what I've found.
Now that I got my airbrush,
An airbrush would work, yes. But then you have to, then it's a matter of what primer you're going to use in the airbrush. Because it's not going to be Krylon unless you decant it from the spray can.
All that stuff that you turned us on to, Ralph, I've never seen anything covered like that.
Stynylrez. Res.
Doesn't make sense to me the way it works. It's. I mean, granted, I'm sure it wouldn't work as an etching primer in those rare cases like aluminum.
It's not. This stuff is not Stynylrez. It's not. Yeah. It's not an etching primer.
But for plastic, wood, man, it covers. It's a wood coat primer, wood coat job. In everything I've done so far, I'm impressed by it.
Yeah, and when you're spraying it on, you're going, "Oh my God, this is not going to work out." But when it dries, it just settles right down and have the smoothest surface. It's not cheap either, so.
Good stuff never is.
Here in Canada, this small, how many ounces is this? 2 ounces is $10. And you can get a big spray can of primer for $8. So which is it going to be? This probably has the same amount of paint in it that the spray can does, except this is concentrated.
Yeah, and using that in an airbrush, you probably get a better pattern than you will with a spray can.
Exactly. And you have more control over how the brush applies it.
Yeah.
What about using spray? What about using rattle can spray paint, especially clear coats?
What kind of clear coat are you talking about? Gloss clear coat? Flat clear coat? Semi-gloss? In HO scale, you really don't want to use gloss. It's a scale thing. Gloss does not scale down to 187. Semi-gloss is a better, it looks more realistic than a high gloss in HO. And then if you go to N scale, you definitely do not use it gloss unless you want to make it look wet. And there's other ways of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, the little rattle cans of Testors dull coat are not, I mean, as far as rattle cans go, are pretty handy for a whole lot of things. I fell in love with working with an airbrush. For people who don't like working, and I'm not an artist, that's not my cup of tea, but an airbrush was surprisingly easy for me to use, not being of an artistic mind. Now, I couldn't spray paint you a beach and you and your wife's name on a T-shirt. That's out of the question for me, unless I couldn't. I don't know how I'd engineer that with stencils or something. But just flat coating stuff. I just bought a C30-7 today, an Atlas C30-7, or I think I have anyway. I think I've got that committed, and it's going to be a black locomotive with some NW livery on it. There's no reason in the world that I can't handle putting some paint on it because of the airbrush. Wasn't for the airbrush, I wouldn't even try that. There's no way I'd rattle can it. I wouldn't rattle can a color now that I've got with the airbrush. But Testors dull coat is fine for a lot of things. I wouldn't do that to my Scale Trace locomotives. I would run the dull coat through the Tamiya dull coat through an airbrush, or what I think it's Tamiya, whatever dull coat it is I've got. Run it through an airbrush. But freight cars, sure, rattle can it.
Right. Randall's asking a question. They say to use gloss coat when you're applying decals, and then hit it with dull coat. I use, and I don't have the bottle here, I use Future Floor Finish. I think they call it Pledge Floor Finish now. You can apply it with a brush, you can apply it with an airbrush, and yes, gloss as well. What it does is it gives the decal a surface to bond to. If you're doing it on top of matte or flat finish, you're going to get all these little pockets of air underneath, and eventually the decal is going to do what they call silver. You're going to see the air pockets show up, or the decal is going to fall off. So onto a gloss or semi-gloss surface, I usually put a second coat of the Future Floor Finish over it. It hides the edges of the decal, and then you can dull coat it all you want.
Andy, are you reading the chat?
Yeah. Yeah, Eric, I can't do I can't do any of that stuff. I'm not artistic to airbrush that stuff. I'm comfortable putting a coat of paint on something. I'm comfortable now taping off for road lines, and I haven't yet, but I would tape off for a two-tone paint job on a locomotive. No problem. I'd tape that off and paint that, and I'm not the least bit afraid of painting a $250 locomotive. It does not scare me at all to paint that. Still nervous about some of the decaling work, some of the small decaling work, because I just haven't done that much of it. When I was modeling many years ago, what I tried to do looked pretty awful. So, and I've done a bit of weathering that I've been pretty happy with, but none of that's airbrush based, given Ralph's techniques, and I couldn't do that at all. I've tried it, and I did some of it, followed other people's techniques, but until I watched enough of Ralph's stuff, I didn't know what I didn't know. Unknown unknowns.
So, John 2618 is asking, what do you clean your airbrush with after the Future? I use water to start with. What do you clean the airbrush with after you use Future?
Usually best indication for anything for cleaning any type of a paint product is look to see what they suggest to thin it with.
But Future Floor Finish is not a paint product.
Well,
It is a natural acrylic, but the best thing to do is clean it out while it's still wet, clean it out with water, and then I have the original Windex. It has ammonia in it. And you spray it into the cup and back flush by holding the tip so the air comes into the cup. It also, in that little channel where the air is, just where it meets the paint, is where you're going to have a little bit of buildup. And the Windex will go in there and clean it out, and then spray all the Windex out. Don't leave it in there. And it's usually fine.
And the ammonia, and you don't even clean anything after the ammonia. So, like, I've used the regular non-ammonia, I think. Well, maybe it has ammonia. The summer-based windshield washer fluid that doesn't have, an antifreeze or an antifreeze product. Yeah. That to spray.
But the summer-based has bug dissolver in it to get it off your windscreen. The winter one doesn't. I use the winter one. Has more alcohol in it.
Okay. Huh.
If you use the original Windex, it has ammonia. Original with ammonia.
Okay. Which most of the things I've been doing lately, not lately, but for the last year or two, have been alcohol based. But it's hard for us to get 99%, so I had to buy laboratory grade 99% stuff off the internet to get 99%.
Well, 99%. You don't have to use 99% when you're painting. You can use 70%. You just have to realize that there's 30% water in it.
And it's going to affect if I wanted to work, the goal in my case was a fast evaporative time, so that it's a super fast process. So getting as close to 100% as you're going to get, 99%, or the difference in 70 and 91 is not insignificant when you're wanting it to dry fairly quickly. So
Costco.
I know, and I can't.
500 mil, half a liter. I get 4 of them. It cost me $16.
Well, Sam's Club, we don't have a Costco. We have a Sam's Club. They didn't have 99%. They had 91. Not to mention,
That's
I need
fine.
alcohol. I was buying, I was buying,
91's fine.
when I was buying 70 and using 70, and it's fine. But then this pandemic happened, and you couldn't get alcohol anywhere, and unless it was moonshine, basically. That's our local distillery was selling hand sanitizer, which is ethyl alcohol, not isopropyl. I even done some research online on how a person makes isopropyl alcohol. Forget about that. Just
Yeah.
you can make ethyl alcohol. You can make ethyl alcohol or moonshine or whatever. You can make that at home with a couple of glass beakers, some fire. That's easy. That's trivially easy. Isopropyl alcohol requires some really complex chemistry. And I still read through to the end and thought about it to figure out if that made sense. But this laboratory grade stuff's not the cheapest stuff to buy. I mean, it's $40 a gallon or $45 a gallon, but you use so little of it.
Yeah.
Should last me a long time. One of the guys said something about the fixative. I've used that, the Krylon fixative or whatever. I don't have a problem using that material on scenery materials, or on structures or something. Like I've used some regular chalk on structures, just regular bar chalk, scratch down to make a powder and paint it on the bottom. Use a brush. Sometimes I get it wet, make a paste, put it on the bottom of the structures. I'll use that Krylon fixative to hold it on a structure or whatever. I won't go near a freight car with it. It's too thick.
Right.
To me, it's too thick of it's too thick of a body. It degrades detail to me. So,
John 26:18, he says, what do you do to thin it? Or do you thin it at all? And I'm assuming you're talking about the future. No, I don't thin it. But what I do after every use on my airbrush is I pull the needle out. I clean it just with some regular cleaner. I have airbrush cleaner. It's like acetone. Clean it off. And I use what Badger calls needle juice. It's called Reg Dab. It's Badger spelled backwards. Just one drop on my index finger, rub it with my thumb, and take the needle. Assume that's the needle, and there's the point. Draw the needle through your finger, but don't go back this way or you'll put the needle through your finger. Always pull it back like so, just so that you get that needle juice coating the needle, and it stops paint from sticking to it. Now, Badger has it. Iwata also makes some form of needle juice, and I'm sure Pache does as well. And there's other airbrush companies out there. They all have some sort of needle juice.
Beetlejuice?
Needle juice.
Beetlejuice.
No, just don't say it fast, and don't say it 3 times. So, and just for anybody who's interested, I did a whole 1-hour show on airbrushes and different things. What was it, two episodes ago, John?
Yeah.
Something like that. The whole show on airbrushing. The use of, not so much actually painting with it, but the use of and care of your airbrush. And it's in our library and on YouTube. Baby oil works good. Well, if you want to use that, I would imagine it does. You'll find if you start shooting lacquers or enamels, you're going to end up with the baby oil in the mix. So you got to be real careful. This stuff is supposedly impervious to those chemicals.
well, we've hit the 1 hour mark. Just want to remind everybody, don't forget, we've got a brand new show starting this Saturday at 9 p.m. And the name of it is Small Layouts, Big Opportunities. And that is with Tom Klomoski. I know I'm butchering that one up.
No, you got it right.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And
Bill's the one that's having trouble.
also with John 2618. They've got together and it's putting on a short series on small layouts, big opportunities. Yeah, them two. Looks like they've got a good show they're putting together. So be sure and tune in Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There will be a couple of PSAs, as people say, running on Friday and Saturday to remind you of the shows. That'll be the 12th. That's this coming Saturday. The 16th is Who's Big Bill Talking To with Joe Atkins. So you want to tune in for that one. And then the 19th will be another Small Layouts, Big Opportunity show. So be sure and tune in. That'll be on Saturday night and Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Alrighty. I want to say thank you to everybody on the panel here for coming in. Lloyd, Andy, Ralph, and Andrew, or Andy M. It sounds more like Annie M, but don't say that 3 times real fast.
You got to click your heels together.
Yeah.
If you say it right, Auntie-M, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, appreciate everybody in the comments coming in. I think I said hello to just about everybody. If not, sorry I missed you. But be sure and tune in Saturday night and watch Small Layouts, Big Opportunities. So with that said, y'all have a good weekend, and we shall see you later.